What if I told you that behind the bright city lights and glamorous Instagram posts of overseas life lies a reality almost no one talks about: Filipino workers sleeping in parks, airports, abandoned buildings, and even outside embassies. Today, we uncover 12 countries where Filipino homelessness has been documented through real cases, rescue operations, and migrant reports. These are not rumors, not guesses, but real situations faced by real Filipinos abroad.
Number 12. Japan.
Japan is known for its order, safety, and strict labor laws, but homelessness among Filipinos still occurs in ways often invisible to the public. Many entered legally as entertainers or factory workers in the early 2000s but later lost their visas and became irregular migrants, often sleeping in internet cafes or on 24-hour shop seats, a quiet form of homelessness Japan is known for. With living costs extremely high, even missing 1 month of salary can push a migrant onto the streets. Filipino-Japanese children who lack proper documents also fall into long-term instability, often relying on church shelters. Winter is especially dangerous, and for Filipinos escaping abusive employers, homelessness becomes an overnight reality. NGOs, Catholic communities, and volunteer groups in cities like Nagoya and Osaka regularly assist Filipinos trying to survive Japan's harsh and unforgiving urban landscape.
Number 11. Hong Kong.
Hong Kong is home to one of the largest Filipino domestic worker communities, yet contract termination often results in instant homelessness since helpers must live with their employers. Many Filipinos find themselves sleeping in parks, sitting areas, or crammed into tiny temporary rooms after being dismissed. The 2-week rule forces workers to find a new employer fast, adding pressure and fear. Salary disputes, illness, and employer abuse are the most common triggers for sudden homelessness. During protests and lockdowns, several domestic workers were even photographed sleeping along pedestrian corridors. The Philippine consulate frequently shelters stranded Filipinos, while migrant NGOs and church groups step in with food, beds, and financial support. Despite its strong labor protections, Hong Kong still sees hidden Filipino homelessness due to its harsh employer-dependent housing system.
Number 10. Singapore.
Singapore is admired for its order and modernity, but Filipino homelessness exists here too, especially among domestic workers fleeing abusive or overworked conditions. Because housing is tied directly to the employer, losing a job or running away means instantly losing your place to sleep, forcing some into stairwells, open corridors, or shared flats where dozens stay in one room. Embassies and NGOs have documented cases of Filipinos hiding due to threats, unpaid salaries, or withheld passports. Singapore's extremely high cost of living leaves no safety net for a migrant suddenly without income, so community groups and churches often become the only lifeline. While Filipino nurses and tech workers rarely face this issue, domestic helpers continue to experience silent homelessness that remains overshadowed by the country's reputation for stability and safety. Number 9. Israel. In Israel, most Filipinos work as caregivers, meaning their housing depends on their employer. When employers pass away, transfer to care homes, or abruptly fire workers, many Filipinos suddenly find themselves without shelter. Overstaying visas, increasing rent costs, and illegal free visa systems have also pushed many into unstable living arrangements, some even resting in buses between shifts. Filipino children born to overstaying parents face legal limbo, often living in poverty or cramped rooms. Religious groups provide help, but fear of deportation prevents many from approaching authorities. Over the years, the Philippine Embassy has run several rescue missions for stranded caregivers. Despite the deep religious connection Filipinos feel toward the Holy Land, homelessness remains a dangerous reality for caregivers who lose their employer-dependent residency. Number 8. Malaysia. Malaysia, particularly Sabah, has one of the largest populations of undocumented Filipinos, some of whom have been there for generations. Many originally fled conflict in Mindanao decades ago and grew up without birth certificates, school access, or legal identity. Entire Filipino communities in Sabah live in makeshift houses built over water, at constant risk of demolition. Mass arrests and deportations repeatedly force Filipinos into sudden displacement, with many spending nights outdoors or hiding in remote settlements. Plantation workers, domestic helpers, and fishermen are often exploited due to their undocumented status. Embassy shelters in Kuala Lumpur and Kota Kinabalu are often overwhelmed. For these Filipinos, homelessness is deeply connected to statelessness, a problem rooted in history, politics, and decades of unresolved identity issues. Number 7. South Korea. South Korea's employment permit system attracts thousands of Filipino factory workers, but those who flee abusive supervisors or lose their jobs often become homeless for days or weeks. Some sleep in subway stations, parks, or temporarily with co-workers. Korea's freezing winters make homelessness extremely dangerous, especially for migrants without proper clothing or money. Churches and NGOs regularly assist runaway workers hiding from immigration authorities. Many are victims of salary withholding, illegal transfer practices, or exploitative working conditions. Language barriers and fear stop them from asking for help. Since the early 2000s, Korea has been a magnet for Filipino labor, but the same system that offers opportunity also places migrants at high risk of displacement when their employment collapses.
Number 6. Qatar.
Qatar hosts tens of thousands of Filipinos, yet runaway domestic helpers often end up sleeping outside the Philippine embassy gates while waiting for rescue. The kafala system historically trapped workers who were not allowed to change employers without permission. Salary delays, physical abuse, and withheld passports are the most common issues pushing Filipinos into homelessness. Embassy shelters house large numbers of distressed workers, while Filipino engineers and hospital workers rarely face these conditions. Qatar's extreme heat makes outdoor sleeping life-threatening, and temporary camps often form around the embassy during mass distress cases. Although labor reforms have improved conditions in recent years, the legacy of the kafala system continues to produce Filipino homelessness in one of the world's wealthiest countries. Number 5. Saudi Arabia. Saudi Arabia hosts the largest Filipino workforce in the world, and this scale naturally produces the highest number of distress cases. During the 2016 to 2020 period, thousands of Filipinos became stranded outside embassies after companies shut down and stopped paying salaries, leaving workers without food or housing. Domestic helpers fleeing abuse also sleep in parks, bus stations, or outside mosques while waiting for help. Saudization policies caused many Filipinos to suddenly lose their jobs and accommodation. Embassy shelters often reach full capacity, forcing some migrants to sleep outdoors. With a migration history dating back to the 1970s, Saudi Arabia is both the land of opportunity and the center of the most alarming Filipino homelessness cases ever recorded, largely due to sudden job loss, unpaid wages, and contract violations.
Number 4. UAE.
The UAE, especially Dubai, has documented many Filipino homelessness cases, particularly during economic downturns. Filipinos who arrive on tourist visas hoping to find work often end up sleeping under bridges, in parks, or inside bus terminals when their money runs out. Recruitment scams remain common, leaving job seekers stranded. During COVID-19 lockdowns, heartbreaking images emerged of Filipinos living outdoors after losing jobs and housing. Domestic workers escaping abusive employers also face temporary homelessness. Because the UAE does not provide welfare support to unemployed foreigners, migrants depend heavily on church groups, community volunteers, and embassy shelters. The cost of housing is extremely high, making it easy for a jobless worker to end up homeless even after years of successful employment. Number 3. Kuwait. Kuwait has one of the most troubled histories involving Filipino domestic workers. Many are overworked, underpaid, and abused, leading them to escape in the middle of the night with nowhere to go. Runaway workers often hide in parks, abandoned structures, or cramped safehouses. The 2018 Joanna Dimaphalis case exposed the harsh reality of domestic worker abuse, pushing the Philippine government to temporarily enforce deployment bans. Embassy shelters are constantly full, and rescue operations happen regularly. Workers face withheld salaries, contract switching, and illegal transfers. Many wait months for exit visas, surviving only through community donations. Kuwait has long been one of the most reported hotspots for Filipino distress, where homelessness is a direct result of severe labor exploitation.
Number 2. Oman.
Oman receives fewer Filipinos compared to its Gulf neighbors, but it still sees a high number of distressed migrants. Domestic helpers escaping abuse often sleep outdoors or depend on strangers for temporary shelter. Oman's rural and quiet environment makes hiding difficult, and many migrants are brought in illegally through recruitment scams that start in Dubai. Fishermen and laborers also report exploitation, salary theft, and contract manipulation. Embassy shelters frequently overflow due to the number of workers seeking rescue. Filipino migration to Oman grew in the 2000s, but despite its peaceful reputation, undocumented Filipinos often endure silent homelessness while waiting for repatriation, struggling in a system that offers limited protections for runaway workers. Number 1. The Gulf cross-country. The most documented Filipino homelessness cases occur across the interconnected Gulf region, particularly Saudi Arabia, Qatar, the UAE, Bahrain, and Kuwait, due to trafficking networks, runaway domestic workers, salary disputes, and collapsed labor camps. Many Filipinos are moved illegally from Dubai to Saudi, or from Bahrain to Qatar, creating cross-border homelessness. Workers stranded due to unpaid wages sleep in abandoned apartments, bus stations, and unfinished buildings. Temperatures often reach deadly levels, and embassies struggle to host everyone needing help. Filipino women make up the largest portion of documented cases, but construction workers and drivers are also heavily affected. This region's migration history goes back to the 1970s oil boom, and today it remains the most complex and challenging hotspot for Filipino homelessness abroad. Filipino homelessness abroad is a hidden humanitarian crisis rarely discussed openly. Behind every FW story of success lies another story of struggle. People sleeping outside embassies, hiding from employers, escaping abuse, or becoming victims of illegal recruitment. These 12 countries remind us that migration is not just about earning money. It is about survival, resilience, and the urgent need to protect Filipino workers wherever they go. Real change begins with awareness, stronger policies, and a deeper understanding of the unseen sacrifices made by millions of Filipinos around the world.